We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube, and also rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What is going on, everybody? We are finally live. It's been quite some time. It's been like a month or so, and missed all y'all. So happy 4th of July. We got the red, white, and blue going on in the background as well. Hopefully, y'all have all your fingers still here. No Jason Pierre-Paul any action was going on, but it's nice to be back. It's nice to be live. It's been quite some time. I had some camera issues, but we're back, continuing our progress to go through training camp and figure out all the different players out there from a Chicago Bears perspective. And today we are previewing the safety position. So we'll be talking about, as we did last time, the departures, the new depth chart, also some of the player breakdown. So we really start highlighting a lot of the key pieces, and we talk about some over-unders. And last but not least, did we get better at the position? We just talked about the tight ends last time, and spoiler alert, we got better there. So we're hoping to continue this sense of progression with this team, with the safety unit. So without further ado, let's get right into this, shall we? Also, if you're working out there, hopefully you just have this on in the background because we're live during a Friday. So let's get started with some of the departures. And the departures are pretty simple. We really just lost Eddie Jackson. Now, I know a lot. Eddie Jackson was one of those kind of bipolar players for a lot of us fans. And I'm kind of curious what everyone else thinks about Eddie Jackson. To me, he's always been one of my favorite players. I've always really liked Eddie Jackson just because I think about that 2018 season. I think about the highs that he gave this team. And also, he was a leader out there. Now, did he miss a lot of tackles? Yes. Was he more of that dive at your ankles type of a player? Yes. But I really like just the playmaking aspect of him, and that the feeling that anything could happen when he's on that defense. Now, sadly, towards the end of his career, it started to go a little bit more negative, but I've always really liked him because he's just been a fun guy, and he brings so much into the locker room. So it's not just losing him, it's losing that veteran presence as well. And I do think that last season wasn't really a terrible season for Eddie Jackson. I don't think it was god-awful. But Eddie Jackson's just always been a solid, good player. He just had some of those ups, those truly high ups, more so in that 2018 season. So that's really the only major departure that we really see out of this entire unit. Also, I failed to mention this as well. If you are watching out there on YouTube and you see all these different graphics that we have, I will be releasing our player profiles. So people that are listening, you'll be able to see the graphics that I use where it helps preview these individuals. And out on YouTube, you'll be able to download them, your own PDF. I don't have it out yet because I'm still going through a lot of these players, but it's up to like 40 pages. So we're pretty darn close to previewing most of the players that we care about on this Bears team. So now let's actually look at the old 2023 depth chart right now, and we see Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker as our starters last year, and then also the backups for the free safeties. Elijah Hicks, so still here. Adrian Colbert, that veteran safety. And remember Braylon Trahan? Does anybody remember Braylon Trahan? He was the person that in training camp made a handful of plays, tip passes went his way. I think he had like 4 interceptions in training camp. No longer with the team anymore, but fun to just kind of bring that up. And also Kendall Williamson was the backup for Jaquan Brisker, our 7th round draft pick, no longer with the team as well. And then Macon Clark, for those that remember, the great Macon Clark, and A.J. Thomas. A.J. Thomas is actually one of the people that I'm most surprised not to see on this safety depth chart this year. A.J. Thomas, I thought, had a pretty good preseason, and he was more that in-the-box type of a safety. The Bears moved on from him and really overhauled this safety unit mainly from the depth perspective, right? We still have Kevin Byard as the starting safety over in Eddie Jackson. But when you look at the depth, this is where I think the story is with the Chicago Bears unit. Because last year, you could hear me talk about this, where when we looked at the depth at safety, we're going, well, if Elijah Hicks or if Eddie Jackson or Jaquan Brisker's injured, we really got nobody else. And that's what the Bears set out to address. Now your depth behind Jaquan Brisker is Jonathan Owens, formerly from the Packers, Quindell Johnson, who we had last year, and Douglas Coleman, rookie out of Texas Tech. Flip over to the free safety side. Elijah Hicks is still the primary backup. Tavarius Moore from the Packers is the third stringer, and Adrian Colbert is also another one of our backups out there from the safety perspective. So really kind of addressed more of that depth at the safety position rather than anything else. So overall, I like the way that they addressed the safety depth, but let's talk a little bit deeper on these safeties, and let's start talking about some of these player breakdowns. And we got to start with the new addition. We have to start with Kevin Byard going into his 9th season, 5'11", 212, went to college, Mid-Tennessee State. So for those that knew that, I actually did not know that. But 30 years old, getting paid $6.47 million this year, and signed that 2-year, $15 million contract in free agency. Last year, a lot of people were saying it was a quote-unquote down year for him. Had 75 tackles, 1 interception, and 3 passes defensed. He was PFF's 23rd highest graded safety with a 72.6. And also, fun fact, just a very reliable safety. Has played over 1,000 snaps over the last 7 seasons, and also was second in missed tackle rate. When you look at minimum of 750 snaps, he had a missed tackle rate of 5.9%. Very reliable. You know he's going to be out there, and you know he's going to make the tackle. So kind of the opposite of what we were used to seeing with an Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson usually banged up a little bit, but also known for kind of missing some of those tackles. Byard, opposite. He's going to be out there for every single snap, knock on wood, and also does not miss a lot of tackles. Fun fact, though, too, doesn't mean that he's just a tackler. He's had over 4 or more interceptions in 5 of his last 8 seasons. Just truly someone that, and I don't think he's missed a single game throughout his career as well. So yet again, knock on wood if you're superstitious, but just a very true good player at this safety position that gives you just tremendous upside and a tremendous floor. Even though he's going to be 30 this season, I like the idea of coming in with a 2-year deal. And the way that we structured it as well, if we find another safety or if we want to move on from Kevin Byard, you can simply move on from him after this year. Yet again, this is what Ryan Poles likes to do. Kevin Byard, 1 year, and hey, if he's good, we'll have him for the next season. So I really like the signing, and just overall brings that veteran leadership that we talked about that you're missing with Eddie Jackson with Kevin Byard. And also, it's very clear. We'll talk about this with Jaquan Brisker. It's clear what the Bears want in a safety. They want someone who can tackle. They want someone that can bring them down, that you know is going to play their role. When you have everybody that's playing their role, playing in the system, good things will happen. Let Matt Eberflus call the defense, and you just play your job. You just do your job. So now, I want to ask the question to all of you that are watching out there on YouTube, and if you're listening, think about it. Do you believe that Kevin Byard will perform more like that Titans version of Kevin Byard, or do you think he's going to be more like the Eagles Byard, where it was kind of a bad system fit? A lot of Eagles fans didn't really like him, said that he was out of position a lot. To me, I think that, like, if you have this 9-year veteran, or was 8-year veteran at the time, all of a sudden drop off, all of a sudden look different. And the biggest critique was that he was more so out of place. They didn't really know where to go. I feel like that screams, hey, you got traded midseason, which he did, from the Titans over to the Eagles. So in my opinion, I think that it was just a situation of going into a new system mid-year, something that he has not done with having his entire career with the Titans. So I really like this signing because, yet again, high floor, and I think he's going to be good. Do I think he's going to all of a sudden be an all-pro? No. When you're 30 years old, you're not going to all of a sudden get back to your all-pro ways and be this dominant safety. but I think he's going to give you a good foundationally sound safety. So that's truly what Kevin Byard brings to the table. So, like I mentioned, let me know what you thought about the Kevin Byard signing. I still really like it. Big fan of it. But now, let's get into Jaquan Brisker. One of my favorite players and someone that I saw, like we all saw him step up in that second half of the season. You saw him starting to do a little bow and arrow. He started to get the flapping. He started doing the little flapping, got his swagger. And really, you saw him I felt like he was one of the leaders in that secondary with just getting people hyped up. He's a chirper. He's going to chirp at you. And Jaquan Brisker just played with a different type of swagger, different type of demeanor later on in the season. And right now, going into his third season, a little bit smaller than Byard, or taller with 6'1", but smaller from size, 200 pounds. He's 25 years old, and last season, 105 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 1 interception, and 9 passes defense. PFF gave him a 66.7 grade, which was 48th best among safeties. And really, this guy, like we talked about, the tackling. This is something the Bears want, that they're trying to preach. Don't give out those loafs to people. Jaquan Brisker, 8.6% missed tackle rate, which you might go, that seems high. It was the 10th best. So we have 2 top 10 tackling percentage safeties out there. It was the 10th best as long as you played at least 750 snaps. So very, very good from Jaquan Brisker, very foundationally sound tackler. And really, you started to see more of that ball hawkness. Now, coming out of Penn State, I wouldn't consider him a ball hawk, just more of an all-around safety. But you really started to see him flying around there a little bit more. 9 passes defense, that's pretty darn good. And my question is, will he take that next step and be kind of this bigger name? Not a lot of people know who Jaquan Brisker is outside of Chicago. Can he take that next step? Can he really put it together and be someone that really shows off? And that's why, to me, Jaquan Brisker, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for him to kind of put things together, and having that safety and having that true veteran in a Kevin Byard. I really like Jaquan Brisker. I'm feeling optimistic about what he's going to be able to do. And also, last season, he played a lot out of the box. 392 of his snaps came in the box, and 316 of his snaps came at free safety. Keep in mind, too, that Elijah Hicks, which we'll talk about later, came in, and he's more of a true free safety. So Brisker had to play more in the box. They want to have safeties that can go in the box, and as the free safety, both Byard and Brisker allow for that versatility. So I feel good about what's going to happen with Jaquan Brisker and what he's going to bring to the table. So I'm looking for a better season out of Jaquan Brisker, and hopefully if this defense can take that next step, Brisker starts to get more love out there, and people start to know Jaquan Brisker as, okay, this guy's a pretty darn good safety. Because I do see there's a lot of hate, a lot of odd hate for Jaquan Brisker amongst the fan base. So I don't get it. I really don't get it. I just think that just a good safety overall. So those are our two starters. Now let's talk a little bit about the backups that we have. Primarily Elijah Hicks and Jonathan Owens. Like I said with last year, the backups were a big problem for us. Elijah Hicks was really the only backup we had, and the only one that could actually kind of play. Now, even though he could kind of play, PFF gave him a 46.2 grade, 93rd overall. And that's not great. So I'm not trying to defend Elijah Hicks and say that he's going to all of a sudden put it together this season, but he is a backup. And I think that you saw the lack of depth behind an Elijah Hicks this year. And that's where, too, I was saying this, and I was reviewing our notes last year. Remember saying the Bears must really have a lot of faith in Elijah Hicks if they're rolling with him as the primary backup. Well, they did, and it didn't look that great. He really did struggle in coverage, and like I said before, first off, I didn't realize he played this many games. He started 8 games last season and played 382 snaps at free safety, 53 in the box. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, 24 years old. And yet again, primary backup. So it turns out he started almost half the season. And 40.2 coverage grade, not great. Elijah Hicks just needs, then you bring in Jonathan Owens. Now you bring in another backup. Now the big question is, what's his future like in Chicago? You gave him an opportunity. You gave him, hey, you can come out and play. You can come out and do some great stuff, but didn't look that great. So now you bring in you have Quindell Johnson. You have Tavarius Moore. You have a lot of other safeties competing for that backup. So my big question is, how secure is Elijah Hicks's future in Chicago? Is he going to be able to kind of shore up his position as that third safety? But personally, I don't think so. I don't think that he's going to be the third safety moving forward, because I feel very confident that Jonathan Owens, this is now his job. He's now going to be the number 3 safety. They gave him a 2-year, $4.75 million deal in free agency. This year, he is accounting for $2.25 million on the cap, and he's 29 years old. So he's not very young, but he is someone that is a veteran with starting experience. He's had over 200 plus tackles in the last 2 years combined. And also, when you look last year, he was the starter for the Green Bay Packers, played 322 snaps in the box, 137 in the slot, so kind of versatile, and 434 at free safety. Now, last year, then 84 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 0 interceptions, and 3 passes defensed. But also PFF, not a big fan of how he played, with a 59.6 grade, which was 73rd. So Jonathan Owens, one of my favorite sayings that I say on this show is a bad starter is usually a good backup. And I still feel this way with Jonathan Owens. Even though when he's out there, I don't think he's amazing, but I think that he's just a good, solid, foundational backup that, as we talked about with the numbers, can play all over the defense. So he gives you good depth. Do I want him starting? No. But if someone were to go down, you feel a lot more comfortable with Jonathan Owens than an Elijah Hicks. So Jonathan Owens can come in and also give you that versatility to say you can play inside in the box and you can play out there at safety. So that's why I think that the Bears felt like they needed to bring in a Jonathan Owens, because they're going, hey, we need a safety. We need some extra depth. Let's bring this in and kind of compete with Elijah Hicks for that primary backup. Or maybe Elijah Hicks is just the free safety, and that's it, right? Then Owens, you can be the backup for Jaquan Brisker if he goes down. And also, I have to bring this up because I didn't even put it on his little profile card. He is the husband for Simone Biles. So, yes, there is that as well. Do I think that he's all of a sudden going to, so hopefully it just adds more publicity to the Bears, but we'll see. Maybe he gets more spotlight when it comes down to HBO, right? Maybe with the show, maybe they show him a little bit more. But honestly, Jonathan Owens, just good foundational backup, just gives you more structure to that team and makes you feel better if someone were to go down, which usually someone does. If someone does go down, now you feel a little bit better about that, because yes, Byard has never missed a game, but a lot of times it can catch up to you. So don't want to just kind of say, hey, he's never missed a game, so let's not have a backup plan. But speaking of backups, let's just talk a little bit about the other backups that we have on this team before we get into our over-unders. So when we talk about these backups, there's 4 primary backups. There's Tavarius Moore, yet again from the Green Bay Packers. He's 27 years old, out of Southern Mississippi. Southern Miss. Then also there's Adrian Colbert, the 30-year-old veteran out of Miami. The Bears brought him in later on last year. He's been just a solid backup. And I think if there's any questions about backups, you can always have Adrian Colbert out there. And I said the same exact thing last season when they did bring in Adrian Colbert. You like the add-in. You like that he's on the team. But you don't necessarily want him to be out there. So you want that veteran if you don't feel great about some of your backups. And then that brings in Douglas Coleman, 6'1", 200. He's actually 26 years old as a rookie out of Texas Tech. Nothing much else to say about him. But Quindell Johnson, the 2-year pro out of Memphis, is someone that I'm keeping an eye out for. Because the Bears brought him in. He's 6'2", 208, so taller frame. Quindell Johnson did play a little bit for the Bears last season and had an interception even for them last season. And that's why I'm curious if is he more of a long-term play, or is he just going to be a practice squad guy, and then Tarvarius Moore is more that number 5 safety? So yet again, we're talking about the super, super, super deep backups out there with Quindell Johnson and Tarvarius Moore, but I think those two are going to be fighting if they keep 5 safeties. If they want to do that, a lot of times people just keep 4, but I think that's going to be a little mini position battle, and Colbert is kind of your backup in case anything happens. And Douglas Coleman is more of a, let's give this guy a shot. If he does anything, sweet. If he doesn't, whatever. Just an undrafted rookie that we added on to the team. So now, let's get into some over-unders and talk about the safety position. So these numbers are specific to the safeties. This is not just Jaquan Brisker. This is not the entire defense. I looked around at how many tackles, how many interceptions, how many Pro Bowls the Bears had, and I'm trying to base it off of this. So let me know down below in the chat, over-under for safeties with interceptions with 5. So I set the mark at 5, and you might go, that seems really low because we had so many interceptions last season. Well, a lot of those interceptions came from corners, came from linebackers, not really the safety position. So right now, I'm setting the number at 5. So when I look at this number and I think about 5 interceptions, I might go at 5.5. Let me know what you think down below. But for me, I feel like it's going to be 5. I feel like 5 is the magic number, 1 with 2, 1 with 3. And I think that might be more of it. So I'm going to actually hit the under on this, not because I don't think it'll be good. I just don't think that they're going to necessarily turn the ball over like crazy, because Jaquan Brisker, not a big interceptions guy, more of a tackler. And Kevin Byard, as he's getting older, you've kind of seen some of those interception numbers kind of falter a little bit. So I'm going to go with under for the 5.5 and say, Bears ultimately go under with the 5.5 interceptions. Next number, 2.5 sacks. Now, if you remember 2 years ago, Jaquan Brisker actually had a good handful of sacks because they were constantly sending him in and having him push the pocket, add some pressure out there. And I think when I look at that 2.5, I'm going to go under again. I don't see a lot of the Bears wanting to blitz the safeties as much. And hopefully we add another defensive end and then we don't have to blitz a lot. So I'm going to go under with that as well, because maybe one gets a sack or 2. So I'm going to go under. And next, interception touchdowns at 0.5. I had this last year because of Eddie Jackson. I'm going to go under again. I don't think that we're going to get an interception touchdown. It's hard. And I'm talking specifically at the safety position. I just don't think that, yet again, Brisker's not one to jump routes as much, and Byard might, but I think with his age, maybe he's not going to be running it in as much. So I'm going to go under with that as well. And last but not least, and I'm realizing every line that I put, I usually go under. Pro Bowls at 0.5. Whew. This is tough. And I think because I went under with the interceptions, I'm going to go under. I think if anyone were to make the Pro Bowl, it would be more at the corner position. And do I think Brisker could all of a sudden be one of the top safeties? I think that people will start to know him more, but I don't think yet people will automatically jump it into the Pro Bowls. And I don't think that Kevin Byard is a big enough name to all of a sudden vault into the Pro Bowl. So, man, I gotta fix these over-unders. I gotta get more overs out there, but I'm going under with all of these. But let me know what you think down below. Are you all overs and I'm incorrect? Are you 50-50 on it? But to me, I'm going unders. I'm going more conservative with it because, yet again, I think as you have a better team, I think that you're going to see less, or you're going to see it more distribute out, like what we were talking about with the tight ends and interceptions. I just don't see someone all of a sudden going crazy and getting all these interceptions out there. So That's why the unders and unders. And now it's the moment everybody's been waiting for. Did we get better as a unit? So let's look at last year. And last year, when you look at the starters, we're going from Eddie Jackson to Kevin Byard. I think that's progression. I think that's better. I think Byard is a better overall player. And you also see this with the fact that Eddie Jackson has not been signed. It's kind of sad, but yeah, this shows you what people think about Eddie Jackson. Now you look at the backups, and also Jaquan Brisker, I think, is going to have a better season. I feel like you're not out of line saying he should get better. He should put more of what's going on around him together. Third year in this defense, and I feel good about him. Then you go to the backups. You added Jonathan Owens over a Kendall Williamson, someone yet again not in the league. Obviously, obvious progression. So to me, this is open and shut. It's easy. I think that the safeties got better from the starters' perspective. They got better from a backups perspective. Overall, this is just a good team and just got better. So tight ends, safeties, both on the up. Let me know what you think, though, down below in the comments. Am I out of line by saying that this unit got better? This group of individuals got better? Let me know down in the comments. Share your feedback. Also, if you're watching out there on YouTube, might as well drop a like, might as well subscribe as well. Helps out the channel tremendously. Also, let your friends know about it too. If they're curious about some Bears content, let them know about the Unbearable Sports Podcast. And also, you can download it on your phone. Just search for Unbearable Sports. Thank you so much. And with that, have a great weekend. Unbearable Sports Podcast. We are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she